Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here, joined today by my hero, John Lenhart. Hi John.
Hi.
Today, John and I are going to talk about a subject that's close to both of our hearts, and that is depression. Okay, we both have different views, but our main target and our main purpose is to relieve people of these depressive symptoms and help show them and guide them on a way to flow. And that is what we're looking to do today. So, John, can you please start us off on today?
Right. So we've been talking about the unconscious brain. It's 90% of your brain. It's where all your energy is. So depression is really your unconscious taking your energy down. So whether you get juiced and have energy or whether you get drained is your unconscious. And remember, we talked about it being a reflexive justice monkey. So what happens is whatever you're doing to someone else, your unconscious is going to do to you. The key point to remember about the unconscious is it has an accurate record of your past external reality. Your unconscious knows everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. So Colin, if I took your brain out, your unconscious brain, pushed play, it would go, Colin said this, Colin said this, Colin did this, Colin did this. So we have a record, we're walking around with it. So that's why the unconscious confrontations worked, is we were accessing that record in that person's brain. Our unconscious cannot process a contradiction. So the main point here is that if you have a contradiction, if you get a contradiction, in judging somebody, your unconscious says, I need this sorted out. And it depresses your energy until you resolve that contradiction.
Oh, I love this. Now, just while we're on the subject of the starting the conversation, people are, how can I put it, they are prescribed medication and things for depression. Now, because I am a great believer in the power of the human brain, the human body, and that we are able to help ourselves without medication in a lot of certain ways, okay? Now, for depression, they talk about a chemical imbalance in the brain, okay? Now, for me, my personal thoughts, and again, I'm looking for you, you've 25 years experience in brain, research, but for me, for someone to say you're chemically imbalanced, that has an element of truth. So it means you're not producing a certain amount of serotonin because you're not doing enough to gain energy to produce this serotonin on a kind of long-term level is what I believe, which means that you're fighting against your unconscious brain, and that's causing the depressive symptoms of you not living your uniqueness and your truth. Would that be?
So what happens is you can measure the chemical imbalance. The question is, did the chemical imbalance happen and now you're depressed, or did you do something that caused the chemical imbalance? I believe people did something. So you say I have this 25 years experience. We've helped, all these people get off antidepressants and get cured from depression, and for decades. And the thing is we have this model that it's according to the unconscious brain. Now, what that model would say is that an antidepressant shouldn't affect, your unconscious brain. If the cause of your unconscious brain, the antidepressant should have effect. So, 20 years ago, I was telling people, antidepressants aren't doing anything. It's your unconscious brain. And then I think it's like 15, 20 years ago, front page of the USA Today, antidepressants and placebos work the same. So if you give someone a sugar pill and tell them it's an antidepressant, it works the same as an antidepressant. So it is not the chemical in the antidepressant. So what is it? Here's what happens. When someone comes to me, I'll ask them, are you on medication? Are you taking antidepressants? How many times has your prescription changed? Because here's what's really going on. When I judge somebody, so if I were to say to you, Colin, it was wrong of you not to get me a birthday card this year. And then someone else comes up to me and says, John, you didn't give me a birthday card. And I said, it's not wrong that I did that. My unconscious goes, I don't understand. Is it wrong? or isn't it wrong? I don't know which one it is. I need my answer. I am going to lower your energy and slow you down until I get my answer. Now, and I'm taking that signal. We talked about tension, and this is a signal. My body's sending me a signal. Do I respond to it? If I ignore it, it's going to get worse. If I go to a doctor and say, I've been feeling this lower energy, this depression, my unconscious says, oh, you're paying attention. They prescribe me antidepressants. I take them, and my unconscious lets me halfway up. Not all the way back. My unconscious let me halfway up, and I'll go, oh, this is working. If I don't resolve the contradiction, my unconscious after 3 to 6 weeks goes, nope, I don't believe you. And now I'm depressed again. So I go back to the doctor. The doctor says, let's up the dose. They up the dose. My unconscious, which is very compassionate, goes, you're trying. Let me help you halfway up. Let me encourage you. Now go get this contradiction resolved. 3 to 6 weeks, nope. I go back to the doctor. Let's change your prescription. 3 to 6 weeks. This is my unconscious, and my acting to do something is telling my unconscious, I'm aware of you, and my unconscious rewards me. But my unconscious isn't going to let me all the way back up till I get the contradiction removed. So like 3 to 4 years ago in Scientific American, they ran an article, because we've been dealing with depression for 40 years now, scientifically, chemically. And there was an article that said, perhaps we have the chemistry of depression exactly backwards. So what they were saying essentially is, we have now run out of chemical explanations for depression after 40 years. After 40 years, we haven't solved this at all. The only option we have left is perhaps all the work we did for the last 40 years has been exactly backwards. That ought to tell you that they don't have a measure for depression. They don't have an explanation, and that it's just the pills work because of our unconscious. They don't chemically work on the body.
I love that. Now, just to touch back on that subject again, because when we look at certain, I won't go into the names while we're talking, because this is going to go out, but when we look at certain prescriptions, and I talk to all my clients about this, what are you on, what's the dosage, how many times went up, just like you've spoken to me, okay? And I'm not a doctor to say, I think you should come off them. I can say, I don't believe that you need them. And that's a totally different thing. Now, when you look at the side effects in some of these, which can, and then they're adding chemicals to the body that aren't meant to be there because they believe that they can help, they can cause other symptoms to the body that can lead to more contradictions in the physical, as well as the unconscious brain that you speak of. So it's like they can actually be doing themselves a lot worse. Well, I'm saying they are doing themselves a lot worse by believing that these are helping them, in my belief, because they're then relying on something and they're not dissolving the issue that they once had, the contradiction that you speak of, for them to move forward. And I find it very, very difficult when people come to me and they say, oh, I need these tablets, I need this, and do you know, my doctors told me this. The doctors have only been told through anything to do with 6 to 8 years at university, and all they're doing is feeding back what they've been told due to a theory. And while you talk about a model that you have, you know, you've done the work and you've done all the scientific evidence, doctors don't have that. And this is what upsets me, is because they're just regurgitating indoctrination, in my belief. And I get that people want to be a doctor, it's a good wage, it's a noble job to a certain degree, you know, and they want to have that kind of high class society living, whatever. But if you look at what's actually been given to people, and the money that these companies are making based on people only having to change their beliefs, their behavior, and tracing back as to what they should be doing. But you and I could literally, with the information that you've got, we could take depression away from everybody, and we can allow them to do it without needing these tablets for most cases. For most cases, I get there are some that can be caused through head injuries and, you know, defects from birth and these types of things. I fully accept that. But most of what's happened, I believe, to be through society, through our programming, our behaviour, the contradictions that we live on a daily basis, which gets us into that rut. And every time we try and chase something to come up from this, we're reading the top, and then as you say, oh, you're trying, and then you come back down. And this is why people's lives are so up and down.
Right. So the first point there is that game theory. You know, the only reason what I'm about to share isn't embraced is because they would have to admit they had been wrong. That's the only reason, because they don't have an answer. That's why I love to say, ask anybody their model for the brain or their model, their explanation, and they'll start qualifying it. And I'm here to tell you this is the answer, and why don't you try this? The only reason people don't want to try this is, well, then it means I was wrong, and I'm trying to win the game. So if I have to slander you or hurt you, John, in order to win the game, don't get offended. Now, here's the thing. We've talked about the dendrites in the brain. So when we think, you know, every word is like a tree trunk, and then the branches are connecting facts. So what happens is if you think of a dendrite like this, connecting to another, so a branch connecting to another branch. So this branch could be the mowing branch on your grass tree. And this is the grass branch on your mowing tree. So when you smell grass, you come to the mowing and you go, oh, I got to mow the grass. You make the jump and you have a frowny face, but that's how your thoughts work. There's some evidence that says what antidepressants do is they fray the dendrite. So now what happens is when you think of mowing, how do you make the jump? Which one of these are you going to go on? Because one of them's connected, the others aren't. So now I have 5 options. Now it slows down my thought, you know, by 80%. Because in order to make this jump, I go, oh, wrong. Oh, wait. Oh, got it. And I make the jump. So one of the things I've noticed, I love working with people who are on antidepressants because I know they have a really fast brain. One of the issues is you can't really get on antidepressants if you don't have a fast brain, because the antidepressant itself could be physiologically doing that. So now here's the interesting thing, and you made this point at the very start of your last explanation. There are guidelines for how to get on antidepressants. When you get antidepressants, there's these sheets and it tells you how to get on them. Can somebody, anybody in the world, show me the sheet that says how to get off them?
Not as far as I'm aware. I've never seen one.
Doesn't that sound interesting?
Yes, it
There's
does.
a process for getting on them, and there is no written process for getting off them. So when you take on an antidepressant, you've entered into agreement that has no end, no agreed on end. I want to show you the 3 steps for how to get off of antidepressants and stay on them, okay? Because just like you, Colin, I never have to tell a person to stop taking antidepressants. So the first thing I do, step 1, is I like to ask people, what pisses you off the most? So normally what happens is when I meet someone who's on antidepressants or depressed, it might take 1 meeting for them to trust me, and I get that. I'm not in a rush. But either during the end of that first meeting or the second meeting, I say, hopefully they trust me enough. I say, I got a question for you. What makes you mad? The worst. Like, what pisses you off the worst? The answer is always what other people are doing to other people or other people are doing to them. There is a judgment. This person has made a judgment. For example, this person could say, I hate it when people tell me what to do. And then I say, and we've learned this technique to flip the pronouns, I say, do you tell other people what to do? When they say, oh, that's different, I smile.
Yeah.
We have found the source of their depression. Because what's happened is they have judged and told their unconscious brain, these people are the worst people in the world to tell people what to do. Hey, you need to do that. And their unconscious is going, see, you can have a contradiction in an area of your life that's not important. And your unconscious is upset about it, but it doesn't come up. The thing that upsets you the most is the thing you do. If it's the thing you do, that's the most important thing. Your unconscious will take you way down.
Yeah.
So at that point, I say to people, your unconscious doesn't care. It's just about a pattern. It's not about good and evil. It's about right and wrong pattern. Either stop telling other people what to do or stop getting upset when people tell you what to do. Believe it or not, Colin, I've had people say to me, well, I'm not going to, no. They would rather hold on to this contradiction and be depressed than pick one of those two and give it up. And that is a lot of what our culture is. Our culture is, I need to be right. And if I'm not right, I need to be twice as right. I need to be 3 times right. And all the efforting forward is causing their unconscious to go, I am just going to sink you.
Yep. Oh, right. Okay. And just to touch on, I know I'm going back to go forward again, but when you were talking about this never ending kind of abyss that we go into when we go on to antidepressants as a human race, why do they say to you, you've got an infection, we'll give you 5 days of antibiotics, we'll give you 10 days of antibiotics, and then you have to come off them so that your body can then replenish what you've used? They don't do this. So that sounds to me like big business. And again, that might be a conspiracy that I'm throwing out there. But again, to me, that sounds like where people can make money. But that's for people to think about. Now, second, I'm sure there's a second point here about you, and we'll go back to that again. Sorry for interrupting you. I just had to voice that.
Well, no, I actually, I want to follow up on that. So one of the things that it is kind of a trap, but when I say we can cure people of depression, people will go, well, but when it comes back, and I'm like, let me ask you a question. If I get a flat tire and I go to a mechanic and he replaces the tire and I get another flat tire, can I go back to him and say, you didn't fix my flat?
No.
Why not? Because we know those are 2 separate events. Yes. And we know how flats occur. So when someone brings up that you can't cure depression, I sit there and go, well, then you must have a model explaining how depression occurs and why it can't be cured. Share it with me. Nothing. And I say, I'm going to share with you a model because then I'm going to show you how I can cure this. And it's actually the person's decision to go back after they know this. So the argument, when people go, there's no way to cure depression, they have now put themselves in the spot of responsibility of explaining to me the model for the mind and the brain and explaining to me the causal model of depression. They can't make that flat statement without backing it up. So that's kind of a trap. So the second step is this. They have a super fast brain and they're still on antidepressants. Now what I've done is I've removed the contradiction. They are not depressed anymore. However, I'm not going to tell them to stop taking antidepressants. But what I do is I talk to them until they come up with a word. And I have a list of like these 10 words. They'll come up with one of those words on my list. And for example, you and I've covered our very first, time we talked about happiness, we talked about love. So when someone brings up love, I'll say, what's your definition of love? And they might not have a definition. They might give a definition. And what they do is when they give me a definition, I'll say, usually they don't have a definition. Or if they have one, I'll ask a question. Wait a minute. Love's a feeling. So you can't love your enemies, right? How do you feel good about your enemies? I don't know. See, everything in the brain is walking through these, this thought process.
Yeah.
And every dendrite is based on a definition. The reason these people are depressed is they don't have a non-contradictory definition for like 10 key words. One of them is love. You don't have the right definition for love. When you start going through the force of your brain, you're going to go off, and then you're going to start accusing people of not loving you when you say you're loving them, but you don't have the definition.
Yeah.
Really, I look at these people with depression issues as if they're driving a sports car, 240 miles an hour, and those cars run on jet fuel. And what everybody's trying to do is say, let's get your car to run 60 and run it on gasoline or petrol, as you can say. That car's never running on gasoline. That car's never going at 60. It's either going 240 on jet fuel or in the pits. These definitions are jet fuel. Yeah. So that's what I'll say to them is, let me give you a definition. Can I give you a definition for love? Can you think about it for a week? Love is giving without expecting anything in return. And the form of that definition is a thing we call conjunctives. You and I will talk about that at some later date. Yeah. But what happens is your brain cannot process a conjunctive unless you start getting, clear in your head, basically, and you start making these connections the right way. What happens is they start processing that during the week. And if they're taking 3 pills, they can't really process it on antidepressants. It frays them. They choose to take 1 less pill.
Yeah.
And then what happens is there's always one word, and we're going to say this for a later podcast, but there is always one word that ends up unleashing everything, curing everything. But I take this a step at a time. When they get this last word right, all of a sudden, everything in their brain connects up. And now they're off antidepressants. Okay? But there's still a third step.
Yeah.
The third step is I say to them, now, write down the 5 people you interact with the most. And they write the 5 names. I said, now, I want you to rank order them in the thought process. Who has the best thought process to who has the worst? And after they do that, I say, circle the third one. Do you want to have their thought process? And usually they go, oh, no. You're the average. Your thought process is the average of the 5 people you interact with the most. And that's the thing, is who do you want to interact with? You need to find some people that have a better thought process you can interact with. You need to learn how to help these people with a worse thought process bring it up. You can interact with people with a bad thought process if you bring it up.
Yeah.
You do that because the depression is going to come back through an interaction with friends. And if you have friends that have a bad thought process, guess what? Your thought process will go back. And that's going to be the new event. They're off antidepressants. They're not depressed. But now what's going to happen is they're going to enable a friend of theirs. They're going to make a judgment with a friend of theirs. It's going to bring in a contradiction, and we start it all over again.
Yeah.
If you do these 3 steps, you're done.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. So what we're talking about here is, and people can reach out to you through the Flowcess website, and for this to be done. Now, I don't have the cure for depression. I am getting taught by you that made the model that has got hard evidence that everybody can be better. Everybody can be better, unless, again, it was something that was an accident, a physical thing that we can't change. Okay, but the depression that has been created by the person themselves from what they have or haven't been doing, you can fix that. And I would love...
It's really about judging.
Yeah.
The key is when they judge somebody and they do it, their unconscious has a major contradiction.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And this video will literally blow people's minds for them to understand how simple that you just put it in those terms. And I believe it's genuinely going to be an awakener for some. And I welcome questions, and I'm sure you will as well. People can reach out to both of us. We don't bite hard the first time anyway. So, I mean, they're welcome to come and talk to us, and they're welcome to come and open up to the degree where we can get somewhere. But listen, thank you so much, John. Again, that's helped me a lot. I had a different, way of looking at depression. Now I look at it different again, which I believe. So it was similar, but totally different, if that makes sense. That was my contradiction. But listen, thank you so much. And I look forward to, speaking to you next week.
Sounds great.
Cheers, John.